Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Palace says President Bongbong Marcos is not pushing for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Laila De Lima and Chel Jokno are set to join the prosecution team.
The COMELEC is projecting a historic early finish in the canvassing of votes for senators and party lists.
The camp of detained senatoriable Apollo Quiboloy clashes with COMELEC over his call for a manual recount of votes.
Newly proclaimed officials in Maguindanao del Norte vow to end clan feuds and ensure peace in the province.
Duterte allies slammed the Marcos administration anew, citing its poor showing in the midterm elections. Despite that, Malacanang insists that they are not pushing for Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment. Here's the report.
With the so-called new Senate set to be proclaimed, they could make or break Vice President Sara Duterte's political career. But this early, Malacanang is saying that it has not been nor will it ever be behind any attempt to impeach Sara. 2/3 of the Senate or 16 votes are needed to convict Duterte on the grounds of her office's misuse of confidential funds. But the palace insists it is leaving the matter to the senator judges and would not have any role in the impeachment.
So yan po ay ating tinututulan at pinasisinungalingan po. Wala pong sinasabing anumang pagkumpiyansa na para mapatalsik o matanggal sa pwesto ang Vice Presidente.
Malacanang also emphasized that it's happy with the result of the polls, even if only half of Alianza's bets made it to the top 12. But the Marcos administration did blast politicians who allegedly disguised themselves as members of the opposition.
Inaasahan din po ng administrasyon ang presensya ng lehitimong oppositionist. Pero lalabanan po ang mga obstructionist na nagtatago sa pangalan ng oppositionist. Mga obstructionist na maaaring pansarili lamang ang kanilang ilalaban.
For longtime Duterte ally attorney Salvador Panelo, the election results only show that the Filipino nation stands firmly with former President Rodrigo Duterte. Another Duterte supporter, attorney Harry Roque, meanwhile, claimed that President Marcos has become a, quote, lame duck. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Laila De Lima and Chel Jokno are poised to join the House prosecution team in the impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. Here's the report.
Several re-electionists will not be able to join the upcoming 20th Congress, including 2 designated prosecutors for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. These are General Santos Representative Donna Charon and Ako Bicol Party List Representative Jill Bongalon. Now talk shift to who could possibly replace them in the historic impeachment trial. A few names were floating. Attorney Chel Jokno, now poised to become congressman as first nominee of party list race frontrunner Akbayan, and former Senator Laila De Lima, presumptive representative of Mamamayang Liberal party list. Eventually, Akbayan party list confirmed that Jokno has agreed to be a prosecutor. Akbayan also said it is extending its full support to what is called a historic process of accountability. De Lima confirmed accepting the invitation of House Speaker Martin Romualdez to stand as one of the 11 prosecutors in the trial. De Lima says her decision comes from a place of duty and principle, noting that this is not about personalities or partisan politics. There's also Miro Kimbo, who's winning as Marikina's 2nd District Representative based on partial and unofficial election results. He was part of the prosecution team during the impeachment trial of the late Chief Justice Renato Corona. But Kimbo has yet to issue a statement on the matter. For Joel Chua, who's keeping his seat as Manila 3rd District Representative and designation as House Prosecutor, these personalities could be a formidable addition to their team.
yung personal opinion ko, talagang maganda rin na makasama namin sila dahil unang-una, nakita naman po natin, hindi po ito mga ordinaryong mga kongresista, mga dekampanilyang abogado to, yung kanilang mga karanasan when it comes to legal matters, talagang mabibigat din naman. Senator Laila de Lima, si Attorney Shel Diokno, si Attorney Miro Kimbo, talaga ng mga may karanasan, may credentials at masasabi natin na talaga namang batak na pagdating sa trial.
The Senate is expected to start Duterte's impeachment trial after President Bongbong Marcos's fourth State of the Nation address or when Congress formally resumes session.
To get more insights on these developments, we have Attorney Michael Yusinko, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Good morning. Welcome back again to News and Views post-election na.
Good morning, Angelo. Good morning, Angela. Good morning to all the listeners and viewers of the program.
All right.
Did you vote?
Yeah, did you vote?
Yes.
All right, let's get right to it. Last week, we were talking a lot about possible outcomes, forecasts, but we did not expect something like this. Oo, there are some of the candidates we expected, but the movement, nalaglag si Budots, nalaglag
nalaglag si Senator Bong Revilla.
Binay we expected it, and also we have two independents. So what is your take on everything?
Well, first, I think it's very difficult to just make sweeping and general conclusions, generalizations about the results, considering we still don't have sufficient information, like which age group voted the most or whatever. There's still more information to gather so that we can make more educated insights about the results. But certainly, at this point, that we can pinpoint certain outcomes that can tell us something or some things about possible changes happening in the electorate.
Correct. Profi, kasi you had university, Angel and I were talking the other day, there were several university surveys that were conducted na dinownplay ng ibang tao, consistently showing Bam and Kiko within the top 6. Sabi nila, ay baka selective ito. But they were the most consistent in terms of the top 5 or 6. Yung mga models ng surveys, do you think failed to take into consideration yung mga young voters in the universities?
Angelo, I have no answer to that. I leave the answer to the people that run the surveys, the firms. But to your earlier point, yes, I think one of the learnings that we can deduce here is that yung Gen Z and the millennial voters flex their muscles, so to speak, and one of the things that they showed us, I would say, is that they are willing to reject dynastic politicians when they can. When they can.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Kung meron silang option, kung meron silang choice between a dynastic candidate and a non-dynastic candidate, they will choose the non-dynastic candidate. And I think yung senatorial outcome and also the party list outcome and buttressed by yung sinasabi mo nga na surveys amongst universities sort of supports that insight, I would say.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks that way now, given that prior to the election, nakita natin yung voter population na I think 60% of the voter population comprised of Gen Z and millennials. Voter turnout ngayon, sabi nila 80%, a little lower than the last election, which was 83%. Pero still mataas pa rin. Everybody were able to go out and vote. The question here right now na lang siguro, Attorney, is your assessment on what did sila Senator Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan did to be able to be in the top 5 of the senatorial race?
So I think they did three good things. No, number one is they ran an effective ground campaign. So they went to the vote-rich provinces and made their presence felt there. No, they connected with communities. They connected, and more importantly, with local leaders. No. Second, I think they stuck to a very responsive narrative, no, or messaging. No, wala na yung mga moralizing and self-righteous messaging, and they just stuck to kung ano yung talagang gustong marinig ng mga botante, like health, education, food prices, food production, agriculture, etc., jobs. So their messaging revolved around those what we call, diba, yung gut issues. No?
That's right.
And lastly, thirdly, I think they made a very good strategic decision in not joining the fray. No?
Yeah.
Yung Duterte, Marcos na bardagulan, they stayed out of it.
Natin
no?
dito dun eh.
Yeah, kumbaga sila para sa kanila, and I think it was very tactical of them na dito lang kami sa kung ano yung gustong marinig at gustong pag-usapan ng mga mamamayan, which is yun na nga, yung mga gut issues. Labas kami dyan sa away ng dalawang pamilya. So those three reasons, I think, help them the most, I think, na ma-attract yung Gen Z and millennial voters sa kanila.
Before we move on to other findings on the election, lastly about this topic, no, I remember we were talking and then we were saying na baka may negative backlash ang being quiet, but obviously may positive backlash by not making sausaw sa issue. But if you look at the survey, sila Bam and si Senator Pangilinan, they got a lot of votes from the north. No, surprisingly, Marcos Bailiwick gave them votes. They were in the top 1 to 7 consistently. No. Do you think this is an acceptance already of a lot of pro-Marcos voters, or is just merely a new generation of voters coming into play?
I would say the latter, Angelo. No, maybe a little of the former na rin. No? But I think mas matingkad sa akin yung insight na yung Gen Z and millennial voters are really sick and tired of the normal politics.
Yeah,
no?
That's right.
Na para sa kanila, we need to do something now. Otherwise, walang mangyayari sa bansa natin. And which is proper for them to think, because sila yung magi-inherit ng Pilipinas, eh, right? They are the next generation who will run this country,
yes.
right? If they get the countries in tatters, then paano naman sila, di ba? So I think yun, mas ganon siguro yung explanation kung bakit talagang nag-perform well Senator Bam and Senator Kiko, even in those areas na they are not expected to do well.
So what about naman po itong the admin slate? No? What did they do naman? Na bakit parang 6 lang, ano, if I'm not mistaken, o 5 yung nakapasok from their slate. Do you think kasama na rin dito yung ng incident about the alleged illegal arrest of the former president who is now detained at the ICC?
Maybe not so much, no, the arrest, kasi meron din naman mga surveys that majority of Filipinos support former President Duterte being prosecuted sa ICC, di ba? So of course, merong naapektuhan yan for sure, but maybe not so much. I think ang malaking tama talaga dun sa administration candidates, and the rankings show it, is yung mga dynastic candidates nila talaga were hit bad, no? So sabi nga ni Angelo kanina, si Abby Binay, Bong Revilla, Ben Tulfo, right? Erwin Tulfo, akala natin will actually compete with Senator Go as number 1, pero number 6, right? Sila Senator Soto, Senator Pia Cayetano, they're at the bottom 6, right? So, para sa akin, I think yung administration talaga were hit hard by Gen Z and millennial voters repudiating dynastic candidates.
So now we take a look at the composition of the Senate. No, the way we see it, we have well, two independent. We already have an so-called opposition. So is this, we were talking about, I remember also, that sino ba ang tunay na opposition, di ba? Is it Duterte? Is it Senator Risa Hontiveros? So now, can we definitively say there is going to be, kahit tatlo lang sila, a true opposition in the Senate?
That depends on them, no? Right now kasi, at least from the statements that we're hearing, is that they want to establish themselves as the true opposition, no? Pero yung side naman ng mga Duterte, no, yung mga Duterte allied senators, sinabi rin ni Vice President Sara Duterte, they want to build a strong opposition din, no? So we'll have to wait and see, and particularly we have to wait kung anong gagawin nung tatlo, and nung si Senator Risa, Senator Bam, and Senator Kiko. How will they fashion themselves in the next Senate, no? Kasi certainly parang imposible to ally with the Duterte camp, right? Parang malabo yun eh. But hindi rin yata feasible to ally with the Marcos camp, right? Kasi parang inconsistent yun, di ba, sa position nila. So we can't say, no? Siguro yun ang sagot ko. We can't say whether there is now a true opposition. It's up for grabs, I would say, between the two groups that want to be the true opposition, and that's the group of Senator Risa and the group of the Duterte allied senators.
Pero before I give it to Angel now, based on policy, let's just take out politics for the meantime. Just talk about issues and policies sa Senate. If you just stick to that, who do you think that the three are most inclined to agree with?
Alam mo, ang hirap sagutin ng tanong mo, Angelo, because so far, no, wala naman tayong naririnig na important legislation from the Duterte side, no? So hindi natin alam kung if they offer something substantial or something relevant, the three senators might support them, no? Certainly yung mga pinopropose ng administration, I mean, we saw Senator Risa oppose a couple of them, like the Maharlika bill, right? So yung tatlo na yon, I think they will stay true to form and you know, vote according to the public interest. And even if the bill or the proposed law comes from the Duterte camp, no, but yan ang nakikita ko so far.
Siguro ano na lang po yung magiging implikasyon nitong resulta na to pagdating naman po sa political power ng admin, no? Specifically si President Bongbong Marcos. Moving forward, syempre 3 years from now, it's going to be the presidential elections again.
Well, it all depends on, I would say it all depends on, ironically, on what Senator Risa and her group will do, no? Kasi if they sort of, you know, maintain a safe position, that will give the Duterte camp, I think, more leverage to make noise and appear more powerful or more aggressive in holding the administration to account, no? So that can work for them. That can work for the Duterte camp in relation to 2028. But if the camp of Senator Risa is able to consolidate themselves as the real opposition, that's going to give them naman a good chance of you know, giving a good fight in 2028. But for the administration, ang kailangan nilang isipin is they have to prove that hindi lang sila puro porma, hindi lang sila puro ayuda, no? They have to show that they can produce results given that they are the incumbent government.
All right, with that, thank you so much for your time and insights. As always, Attorney Michael Yosinko, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Magandang umaga po.
Maraming salamat.
COMELEC says any call for a manual recount in the 2025 elections must go through the proper legal process, beginning with the filing of an election protest. This statement comes after detained religious leader Apollo Kibuloy's camp called for a manual recount amid reports of election irregularities. Chairman George Garcia explained that conducting a manual recount would require legislation and a separate budget. He added that the poll body is already conducting a random manual audit as part of its standard procedures. In response, Kibuloy's lawyer, attorney Israelito Torreon, disputed the need for a formal petition. Citing Section 31 of RA 9369, he argued that COMELEC has the motu proprio authority to initiate a recount due to widespread complaints.
Several groups staged a protest in front of the Cebu provincial capital on Wednesday. They denounced what they described as massive disenfranchisement during the recently concluded Bilang Pilipino 2025. They called for a manual recount of ballots, citing irregularities in the electronic vote transmission and alleged cases of voter suppression across the country.
Hindi natin tiyak yung resulta, hindi natin tiyak kung yung i-transmit, no, sa iba't ibang mga canvass centers, kung yun ba ang tunay na resulta bawat presinto. May suspitsa kami, no? Mismo mga politiko o natalo, may question sila sa resulta.
Actually, ang mga partido nga maagrabyado is given the leverage of the office to file the necessary remedial measures.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The COMELEC's official canvassing of votes is still underway. For the latest, let's bring in our mobile journalist Merrimon Reyes live from Manila Hotel. Merrimon, tell us what's happening there.
Angela, good morning sa inyo. Masayang na naibalita kahapon ng COMELEC na yung 100 na COC goal nila na makakanvas sila kahapon ay na-meet nila. So plus yung 58 nung unang araw ng canvassing plus yung 103 na nakuha o nagawa nila kahapon, that makes up 159 over 175 COCs. And magko-convene sila today around 2 o'clock p.m. and nakikita nila na hopefully matapos ang araw talaga nito. So as early as by the weekend, official proclamation na raw ng mga magwawaging senador at party list groups. Pero dito sa likuran ko ngayon, tumakbo muna ako sa Pasay City kung saan isinasagawa din yung random manual auditing na itong nasa likuran ko, 60 teams yan from DepEd, mga teachers yan na hindi nag-serve as electoral board member this year pero may experience na as electoral board sa mga lumipas na eleksyon. And so far, base sa datos na nakuha din natin, may hinihintay pa sila. Medyo marami-rami pa yung hinihintay nila dito na kasi 123 pa lang yung na-retrieve nila na randomly selected ballot boxes from over 762 mula ito sa various precincts sa bansa. And isa sa pinaka-tinitignan natin ngayon, so far kasi wala pa tayong record, wala pa silang inilalabas na numero kung ilan na nga ba yung na-audit nila. Kasi pwede ang isang ballot box na nandito, aabutin ng libo-libo yung mga boto na kailangan nilang manually bilangin para maikumpara kung tugma nga ba ito doon sa election returns naman yung bilang naman ng boto na nakuha ng ACM. Pero tinitignan nila over 45 days, sana matapos ng araw nila ito. Pero nilinaw ng COMELEC, hindi ito maaaring gamitin for any election protest. Rather, ang nasabi sa atin dito ni Ms. Tami mula sa PPCRG, maaari daw itong gamitin as reference or basis para sa mga susunod na halalan para makita kung may margin of errors pa nga ba itong mga automated accounting machines o kaya naman ay ano pa ba yung kailangan nilang baguhin when it comes to the materials, yung pagbabasa, kung doon ba sa markers, sa pentel pen, sa papel, yun daw yung pinaka-titignan dito but not necessarily to be used as for any reference to election protests. Balik sa inyo.
I'd like to ask you, Marymon, about that. Now, what if, let's say, malaki ang discrepancies, hindi minimal, then ganun pa rin ba yun? Reference lang for the next election?
Sa ngayon kasi, based daw sa history, 99% daw kasi na naging accurate yung pinakalumalabas dito sa random manual auditing in comparison doon sa nakukuha din na numero. So kung sakali man nakaantabay sila, kung bababa raw doon sa 99% na accuracy ito, para tinignan nila yung magiging next move nila, kung i-relate din nila ito sa COMELEC, and if kung magkakaroon ba ito ng impact o epekto doon sa currently canvas na nabilang ng boto.
Marymon, doon sa nabanggit mo na 175 na dapat 175 COCs na dapat ma-canvas nga diyan. How many doon yung mula sa probinsya, mula sa overseas votes, tapos mula sa mga local absentee votings at ano pa?
Actually, yung numero na yan, to be specific, wala pa tayong nakukuha kasi halo-halo ito and randomly selected siya ng PSA. Pero ang sinabi sa atin, from Luzon hanggang Visayas, proportionately meron talagang kinuha dito ang PSA. And nilinaw din nila, hindi COMELEC nor any other government agencies dito ang pinaka namili ng ballot boxes, kundi ang PSA. Pero siguro sa mga susunod na oras, try natin magtanong pa kung ano-ano nga pang mga lugar. Pero yung ilan sa narinig natin, nasabi ni Ms. Tammy, ang Bulacan, kumukuha ng ng ballot boxes mula Bulacan. So safe to assume from provinces to municipalities or cities, meron talagang pinik na ballot boxes for the random manual auditing.
Alright, and to be clear, ang kanilang target na maproklama, hindi partial na mga kandidato, hindi katulad ng mga nakaraang mga eleksyon, ay gusto nila yung top 12 na kaagad at saka yung mga party list by this weekend, tama ba?
Yes, ang sabi sa atin ni COMELEC Chairman George Erwin Garcia, hopefully by Saturday, May 17. Pero tinitingnan din nila since yun nga, medyo mabilis nga raw at makasaysayan daw yung quick canvassing ng NBOC. So tinitingnan nila either Friday or if not later than Sunday. Basta ina-expect na nila this weekend meron ng official proclamation. And within this day, inaabangan na rin natin yung partial and official vote counts and possibly a number din when it comes to the voter turnouts. Kasi so far, ang sinend din sa atin, isisingit ko lang din ito ni COMELEC Chairman Garcia, sa Region 5 daw, naging maganda ang voter turnout. Kasi for example, sa Albay, ang registered number of voters is 940,114. Ang ballots counted o yung mga bumoto talaga doon, 840,183. So ang naging voters turnout nito is 89.37%. So titingnan natin sa mga susunod na oras kung same din ba kaya ang kalalabasan ng voters turnout na ito sa iba pang mga region, lalong-lalo na doon sa vote-rich provinces and cities.
Right. Maraming salamat, mobile journalist Marymon Reyes.
Winners in Maguindanao del Norte's local elections were proclaimed inside a military camp while they pledged to promote peace and development in the province. Here's our report.
Secured over 122,000 votes, defeating his
report. We'll get back to you later on. But generally, maganda ang turnout, as Marymon had said, no? But I think technically we're doing okay already, so let's get back to it. Talking about the Maguindanao del Norte's local election, they were proclaimed inside a military camp, and they pledged to promote peace and development in the province. Now, here's a report.
Datu Tucao Mastura made history by becoming the first elected governor of Maguindanao del Norte after the province was divided into two during the plebiscite in 2022. Mastura secured over 122,000 votes, defeating his nephew Suharto Teng Mangudadatu. According to Mastura, his primary focus will be on the development of the province.
Ang unang pinakamahalagang proyektong natin is how to make Maguindanao Norte an industrialized or a best business center. Kasi nandiyan po ang Puliyok, nandiyan po ang airport natin. Kailangan natin mga investors po para mabubuhay yung bar.
Mastura's running mate Datu Marshal Sinsuat also won along with the Congresswoman-elect Bai Dimple Mastura. Sinsuat said he will prioritize resolving family feuds or RIDO, which are often the root of local conflicts, especially land disputes.
Yung natatandaan ko pa na nasabi namin nung kampanya is una-una yung peace and order.
One of our priorities is peace and order dahil kung wala pong peace and order, mahirapan po ang development.
The canvassing and proclamation of the winning officials took place at the 6th Infantry Division camp in Datu Udin Sinsuat, Maguindanao del Norte. This is to ensure security and peace amid the election-related tensions. Overall, 49 election-related incidents were reported nationwide during the 2025 election period. 27 of these are still being validated, while 12 remain under investigation to determine whether they are linked to the election day itself. The highest number of incidents were recorded in the Cordillera, Bangsamoro, and Calabarzon regions. Despite these incidents, the Philippine National Police reported a 53% decrease in election-related violence compared to the 2023 barangay and SK elections.
Independent bet Mark Anthony Santos has been proclaimed as Las Piñas representative.
Let's get his reaction. Kong Santos himself is now joining us live via Zoom. Congressman, thank you very much.
Hello, good morning.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Kong.
Salamat po. Maraming salamat po.
All right, a lot of surprises
I know.
in these elections, and one of which was your candidacy. You defeated, an institution sa lugar na yan, no? Si Cynthia Villar. Did you expect this?
Of course, it's a combination of hard work and perseverance siguro dun sa campaign. And then, yung clamor for change din siguro for a new choice naman for somebody to represent the city po.
Pero based on your campaign po and when you were dealing with people, ano po ang naririnig mo na hinaing ng mga tao regarding to what kind of change do they want?
Kasi since 1998 po, ang representative sa Congress ng Las Piñas comes from the Villar family po. In 1998, sina Senator Manny Villar, isang pamilya na lang po sila na-elect ever since. So, parang ang tao po, talagang ang mga soundbites kasi during the campaign sige, konti, maiba naman. Oo, yun ang sinasabi nila sa akin. And siguro nagtiwala din po sa akin yung mga tao kasi 7th-term councilor din po ako sa Las Piñas. At malawak na rin po ang naging experience natin sa local governance. And then at the same time, naging chief of staff po tayo ng dating Mayor Nene.
Yes.
Dun sa executive department. So, yun po ang yung naging sitwasyon sa Las Piñas. And of course, yung mga issue ng political dynasty, yung turn of events din po, just like what happened in mga surveys natin. Nag-iba po doon sa Senate, sa party list.
Yeah.
And of course, may mga issues po. May mga issues din, especially doon sa Villar family business.
So, what can the people of Las Piñas expect from your office, for the first 100 days?
Opo. Isa nagkakaroon ng misnomer, no? Ang trabaho kasi ng congressman is to legislate.
Yes.
Legislate talaga. So to file bills, propose legislation, yung legislative agenda mo. So ang number one, itutulak po natin institutionalization socialized housing program dito sa Las Piñas. And then isa rin dito yung we will put up a congressional extension office. So para tuloy-tuloy yung ating konsultasyon. By the way, I am the chairman of the Housing and Land Use and Informal Settlers. Kaya yun ang advocacy ko po talaga, yung socialized housing. So tuloy-tuloy po yan. So supportahan natin yung Pambansang Pabahay Program ng Department of Human Settlements. Para, alam niyo po, na sa experience ko po, yung mga kababayan namin dito sa Las Piñas, yung nabigyan naming disenteng pabahay dito is about 27,000 na po. And ang experience ko po kasi doon sa consultation, grounded po tayo sa mga tao. Kaya ang experience ko, yung pag nabigyan mo ng dissenting pabahay, yung mga kababayan natin, nagkakaroon sila ng dangal nabibigyan mo sila ng inspirasyon, motivation para pag-aralin yung mga anak nila at magkaroon ng trabaho. So, maganda po programa ito. Kaya isusulong po natin ito sa Kongreso din, hindi lang sa Las Piñas. And of course, ang trabaho ng congressman is yung pinakamalaking trabaho talaga is yung budget, yung General Appropriations Act. At alam na din naman natin na kailangan makahingi ka din ng tulong sa national government, lalong-lalo doon sa mga infrastructure projects, and then doon sa health, sa Department of Health, the SWD. Lahat yan, gagawin ko lahat yan. Yun ang unang uunahin natin sa Las Piñas.
So you also said kasi during your campaign that you also want to pass a bill that would add another Las Piñas House seat. Why so?
Ay, magandang tanong, ano? Kasi ang Las Piñas qualified na talaga for a 2 legislative district. Ang population, tsaka under the Constitution, no? Qualified na. Why 2 legislative district? Kasi more representation, more benefits na makukuha natin, especially to the national government. Kailangan yun, no? Kailangan.
Hindi po, what can you tell those people na nagsasabi na if you do this, 'di ba? Parang you're opening up na naman na mapagkakakitaan ng mga politiko or something, an avenue para sa mga political dynasty na naman para makaupo sa gobyerno.
We are a democratic country po. Anybody can run, kahit membro ka ng political dynasty. Ang importante yung serbisyo sa tao. Yung may bibigay mong benepisyo. Hindi nyo napapansin yung ayuda, di ba? During the last election, yan ang pinakamalaking challenge ko dito sa campaign. Kasi yung mga incumbent senators and congressmen, 10 days before election, a year ago, nakapagbigay na sila ng ayuda. 100 milyon ang pinamigay na ayuda. Imagine mo yung allocation ng isang congressman at senator. That's why dapat baguhin na natin yung sistema. Kaya nga, ang advocacy ko rin ngayon, sana yung pagbibigay ng ayuda, tutingin naman natin yung ibang mga programa kagaya ng infrastructure program, dun sa education, scholarship. Dapat dun tayo nag-i-invest talaga. Kasi yung ayuda, tinuturuan natin maging tamad yung mga kababayan natin.
Right.
Iniintay na lang parari yung ayuda, and then kitang-kita ngayon yan, itong election na to, kung paano ginamit ng mga politiko ang ayuda. That's why 50% ng mga candidates sa congressional races, walang kalaban. Bakit? Kasi bugbog sa ayuda. Ano pang ilalaban mo? Pero tayo, nanindigan tayo. Pinanindigan natin yan. Kaya naniwala ang tao sa atin. At hindi ko bibiguin ang mga kababayan ko sa Las Piñas.
So, Kong, you achieved something nga po that many thought was impossible. And alam naman po natin, ang Villars was nasa power po ng Las Piñas since 1992. Do you think po ba marami pa po silang mga hindi nagawa sa Las Piñas that you will be able to continue?
Siyempre, mas marami pa pong representation. At tingin ko po, wala namang katapusan ng development dito sa city namin. So, more investment. And
pero sa tingin niyo po, may nagawang matino naman, may nagawang maayos naman po ang mga Villars sa Las Piñas on your perspective?
Definitely. Meron naman po. May mga covered court, multipurpose, mga kalsada. So, pero ang totoo naman po, ang ginagamit pong pera natin hindi naman personal na pera natin. Pera po ng taong bayan yan eh. That's why during the campaign, sinasabi ko, yung ayuda na yan ay hindi naman pera ng mga politiko. Yan ay perang buwis na binabayad natin.
That's right.
Yung mga value-added tax, income tax. Kaya I think naging successful naman ako sa messaging sa mga kababayan ko. Kaya naniwala naman sa akin sila. At yan, tuloy-tuloy natin gagawin yan para sa ikaw-unlad ng bayan ng Las Piñas.
Also, Kong, we'd like to ask, of course, now that panalo ka na po, no? Nakapag-usap na po kayo ni Ma'am Cynthia Villar kasi we all understand it was a very heated race, no? Daming lumalabas sa social media about
plus ang supporter niyo pa is yung sister-in-law niya.
Yes, oo. So medyo at peace na ba po?
Sa akin po, personally, I have no issues against the Villars. Sa akin po kasi, documented naman nung campaign yung mga political issues. Hindi naman po tayo nanira. At ako, I'm offering my hand to them. Sincerely, talagang kailangan ko din ang suporta nila. Kasi imagine, they're the wealthiest family in the Philippines.
That's right.
Kung makakatulong pa sila dito sa Las Piñas, why not? So, in fact, I'm trying to reach out dun sa mga kasama ko dati na naka-party mate sila sa City Council. And I have texted yung mga dating kasama kong konsehal. And maganda naman yung response sa akin. So, hindi ako titigil hanggat hindi namin na-unite yung ang politika dito sa Las Piñas.
Have they congratulated you already?
Excuse me?
Have they reached out na po and congratulated you already? Ang mga Villars po?
Ang mga Villars, hindi pa. But meron ako nakita mga posts sa Facebook na nag-concede na si Senator. So, ang sinasabi niya, marami pa siyang gagawing programa. So, well, that's good for Las Piñas. Kung talagang maganda pang maraming maitutulong. Kailangan ng Las Piñas siya.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras and good luck po on your first term as a congressman in Las Piñas. Thank you, Congressman-elect of Las Piñas, Mark Anthony Santos.
Salamat po at
Now, vote buying remains deeply entrenched in Philippine elections, according to a preliminary report by the European Union Election Observation Mission. The team, which monitored the 2025 midterm polls, noted that the practice was widespread despite stricter regulations from the Commission on Elections. Observers recorded several credible reports and first-hand evidence of vote buying through cash, goods, and even government aid or ayuda. Incidents were observed in multiple provinces, including Bohol, Davao Oriental, Palawan, Quezon, and Zamboanga del Sur. In some areas, there were even bidding wars among candidates vying for votes.
The PPCRV is conducting its unofficial parallel count for Bilang Pilipino 2025. Let's get the latest from mobile journalist Arles de los Santos live from Manila. Arles, what's the latest?
Magandang umaga, Diego and Angela. Nandito tayo ngayon sa PPCRV sa Maynila kung saan ay nasa ikatlong araw na ng pag-check sa transparency server ng PPCRV at patuloy pa rin ang pagdating ng mga volunteers dito mula sa iba't ibang paaralan sa bansa. Ngayon ay katatapos lamang ng press conference ng PPCRV spokesperson na si Ana Singson kung saan ay maraming mga balita na tayo ay nakuha mula sa update nito kagabi. Una na dyan syempre ang pagkakaroon ng update para sa pinakamataas na voter turnout para sa midterm election na ito. Nangunguna dyan ang Ilocos Region na mayroong 86.89 na sinundan ng Western Visayas at Central Visayas at ng Davao na mayroong 80% na voter turnout. Ayon sa PPCRV, ang election daw na ito ay isang enthusiastic and active na kumpara sa mga nagdaang mga eleksyon. Pero isa lamang yan sa mga nabigyan na focus dito sa PPCRV dahil kapapasok lamang na balita Angela at Diego, mayroong mga mislabeled na mga bilang na pumasok sa COMELEC system, kasama na dyan ang mga lugar sa Zamboanga at Dumaguete. Halimbawa dyan ay ang Zamboanga, meron silang nakita doon na presinto na merong voter count na 992. Pero ang pumasok na boto ay 768, ngunit ang bilang sa balota ay 919. Isa lamang daw yan sa mga hindi pagkakatugma sa mga pagdo-double check ng PPCRV dito. Kanila raw itong itinanong sa COMELEC pero ang nabigay pa lamang daw na sagot ay ito daw ay mga mislabeled. Hindi pa ito matatawag na dagdag bawas daw dahil kailangan pang imbestigahan ang bagay na ito para mas makumpirma at ayun daw ang dahilan kung bakit may audit. Diego and Angela?
Arles, siguro tanong ko lang kung satisfied ba ang PPCRV doon sa naging eksplanasyon ng COMELEC tungkol doon sa mga delay ng transmission the day after the elections?
Angela, pumasok kasi o nakita itong mislabeled na ito. Ayun na lamang itawag natin dito dahil ayon sa PPCRV, itong mga mislabeled na numero na ito ay nakita na nila mula noong May 12 pa. Ngayon daw ay naayos na ito, pero ang explanation lamang ng COMELEC ay mislabeled nga raw. Hindi dyan, masasabi natin ayon sa Presco na hindi satisfied ang PPCRV sa explanation na ito dahil halimbawa raw, kung pumasok ang 768 na bilang ng mga balotang na ipasok doon sa lugar na iyon, ay kung mali daw yun or mislabeled, para saan daw ang numero na iyon? Ibig sabihin daw ay meron corresponding place o sabihin na natin sa file na yun ay merong lugar yun, may gamit ang numero na yun at para saan yun. Kaya daw nangihingi ng mas malalim na explanation ang PPCRV sa COMELEC para daw mas masiguro natin na transparent talaga at malinis ang halalan na ito.
Ay, Arles, also, yesterday we spoke naman with NAMFREL and they were talking about yung supposed router na pinagdadaanan ng mga boto na initially, nung nag-meeting sila daw with COMELEC, parang they agreed na wala na dapat ganun, dapat straight to the servers para real-time, sabay-sabay ang pasok ng resulta. Ano yung tugon naman ng PPCRV dito?
Actually, Diego, kanina nabanggit din dito ni spokesperson Ana Singson na naghihintay pa rin sila ng ibang mga data na mula sa COMELEC dahil nananatili, nakikita nyo sa likod ko, na 97.37 pa rin ang precincts ang pumasok mula May 14 at 6:51 PM pa ang huling update nila dito sa PPCRV. Kailangan pa rin daw nila ng ibang mga datos, pero sa mga nakaraang press con ay nabanggit nila na medyo mahabang proseso raw kasi ang paglipat ng mga data o ng bilang ng mga boto patungo sa kanila.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyo, Arles de los Santos.
Don't go away, we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Former President Rodrigo Duterte's legal team has requested the disqualification of 2 judges from the ICC pretrial chamber handling their jurisdiction challenge. In a motion dated May 12, they requested the removal of judges Rain Alapini Gansu and Maria del Socorro Flores. Duterte's camp argued that disqualifying the judges would uphold impartiality and protecting the integrity of the proceedings. Duterte is currently detained at the ICC in The Hague, awaiting the confirmation of charges, hearing scheduled for September 23. Meanwhile, ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti explained that Duterte's win as Davao Mayor has no impact on the ICC case and will not delay or halt the proceedings. Now in weather, several areas in the country may experience rains in the next 24 hours. Scattered rains and thunderstorms are expected over Mindanao, Leyte, Southern Leyte, Eastern Samar, and Palawan. That's due to the Intertropical Convergence Zone or ITCZ. Metro Manila and the rest of the country may also experience isolated rains due to the easterlies. Despite that, some areas may continue to experience high heat index. 43 degrees Celsius is expected in Dagupan, Bacnotan, Apari, Iba, Tayabas, Cavite City, and San Jose Occidental, Mindoro.
The Mall of Asia Arena has installed a new center-hung LED display to improve viewing experience of fans. Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho has the report.
Unveiled just in time for the Mall of Asia Arena's 13th anniversary this May, the Cube is the most advanced and the biggest center-hung LED display ever installed in the country, costing over $2.1 million. Manufactured by Daktronics, the same company behind the scoreboards at Madison Square Garden and the Crypto.com Arena. This cutting-edge tech promises a more dynamic and high-definition viewing experience with crystal-clear images and over 200 trillion colors.
Yun is basically a partnership with our content partners, like for example, Signal TV, that would be able to maximize this because syempre, yung vision ng Signal TV to provide the best entertainment and of course, broadcast quality content, it's also mirrored inside the venue. So, hindi siya pixelated, it's 4K, it's over 200 trillion colors that it is capable. And
the Cube also features a top ring and bottom ring display, offering wider coverages for event stats, replays, live fan cams, and real-time social media feeds. It all began after the FIBA World Cup in 2023, when plans to upgrade the arena's digital display systems were set in motion.
We sat down as a team with our senior management team and tried to lay out the foundation for a multi-year plan to develop and reimagine the Mall of Asia Arena, so that at least we would be attuned and be on top of the venue sphere. We have embarked on an upgrade program that would be able to future-proof us for the next 20 years, so to speak.
Fans packed the arena for UAAP Season 87 Volleyball Finals Game 2, the first event to showcase the Cube in action.
We're very much excited. It's the championship game of the UAAP later on. It's something that I think a full house capacity crowd would be able to enjoy and see the difference. You would see interactive graphics already that would be shown on screen.
And with the Cube now lighting up the arena, SMO Arena aims to remain the country's top venue for unforgettable live sports and entertainment experiences.
We're very excited, and it's actually not for us more than us here at the SM Mall of Asia Arena. It's really for the fans. We're more excited for the fans to continue to enjoy world-class entertainment and sports here right at our venue in a more immersive and digitally versatile environment.
Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
The NU Lady Bulldogs win their third UAAP Volleyball Championship in 4 years, sweeping the LaSalle Lady Spikers in Game 2 of the Season 87 Finals. NU clinched a best-of-3 series 2-0 to repeat as UAAP champions, making them the first team to win back-to-back women's titles since LaSalle's own three-peat from Season 78 to 80. Powered by the core trio of MVP Bella Belen, Alisa Solomon, and Camilla Lamina, all now three-time UAAP champions, the Lady Bulldogs cemented their legacy as the faces of NU's golden era. Now over to men's volleyball tournament. NU turned back Far Eastern University with a stellar comeback in the clutch to force a winner-take-all Game 3 on Wednesday. Game 3 will determine whether NU cements its dynasty with unprecedented 5-peat or if FEU reclaims the throne and extends its all-time best to 26 championships. Yun. So, yeah, the dust is settling. And we see our politicians now, little by little, may mga congratulatory na sa kanila, mga nag-concede,
so,
di ba?
By weekend, sabi nga ng COMELEC, they're set to proclaim the fastest in history.
In history.
Kasi usually, yung mga canvassing, it would take weeks to months.
Correct.
Di ba? Especially months yan nung manual pa tayo. Nung time na yun. Nung boy ka pa nung nauna ka sa akin. Hindi ko na naabutan yung manual counting.
So hindi, pero alam mo, a lot of NAMFREL and even PPCRB were saying na, may mga glitches, there were minor inconsistencies, there are minor problems na pwede pa i-improve, pero they're overly satisfied daw with what happened.
Yun nga lang, di ba, kasi remember the interview yesterday with
NAMFREL.
Sir Eric ng NAMFREL.
Yes.
Sinasabi niya kasi ang kasunduan, there's no transparency server
yung
anymore.
Router issue.
Sabi niya, pero it seems that may pinasukan na router. Yun ang sabi, it seems. So, hindi pa daw niya alam. So, dapat matanong din natin yung COMELEC regarding that.
Yeah.
Diba? Kasi baka naman may explanation din sila regarding.
Yes. All right. Well, with that, thank you for another day. And that wraps up today's episode of News and View.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I am Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.